students. Hi, welcome to your Fine Arts A credit recovery class. My name is Mrs. Girot and I'm going to be your facilitator. Not as much a teacher as I am a facilitator. You'll be working on this class independently. However, I have put together a plan and there is something for you to do every single day on the plan. So as long as you do the task on the plan each day, you'll stay on track to finish the class on time by March 14th, a little bit early. So let's take a look. All right, so this is what the class looks like. It's not very exciting. I'm in the content tab, and as you can see, you've got Unit 1, Understanding Art, Unit 3, Art of Ancient Times, Unit 5, Perspectives in Design and Many Cultures, and 7, The Renaissance. There is a final exam in this class. However, if you have an A by the time you finish Units 1, 3, 5, and 7, you do not have to take the final exam. And believe me, you'll be thrilled that you didn't have to take that exam because it's quite a doozy. So go ahead and get started by clicking on your plan, and wherever you're at, I just want you to be aware that the class started on the 22nd. So I know that some of you may have been put in a little later than that. So what you want to do is you'll want to take the week view of the plan. That's my favorite. And you can just see there's a calendar over here and come on over to where it says the 22nd. And you'll click on that. And if you hover your cursor, all of the assignments that I have in here are at 11:30 every single day. So you'll notice it says on there that that's the Fine Art A class, and so you would just click on that, go to more, and that would be your task for the day. And you would just go through Understanding Art. Though every artist has an individual and unique way of making art, we often group works of art and architecture with similar characteristics according to a general period, civilization, or style. How artists use the elements of art and principles of design, such as line, color, and pattern, helps determine style. In this unit, you'll study works of art from different perspectives, including historical, critical, and aesthetic. You've done this in other classes, right? Welcome to Fine Art. Art cannot be described in words and pictures alone. You must experience it for yourself. From the pyramids of ancient Egypt to a Picasso painting, the world of art is rich and varied. When you visit art museums and historic places and look at paintings, sculptures, and architecture, you can use what you've learned in this course as a solid foundation for understanding and appreciating art. So this is pretty easy. You just kind of go through, and as you read through the semester introduction student activity, use this student guide to take notes about each screen. You may need your notes to help you navigate through the lessons in this semester. Take a quick look at what you will study this academic semester. Let's see here. It's actually a block, right? We're not doing semester. You're going to get your credit in a block rather than a semester, so that's pretty awesome. These are the units that you'll study, and you're not doing any of the studios. So where it says Unit 2 is a studio, you know, I took out Unit 2 and I took out Unit 4. There are no studios in this class. I took out Unit 6. Okay, so and there's no Unit 8. So you have no studios in this class. You're not going to be creating art. You're just going to be learning about art history. Okay, and so understanding fine art changes the way you see and appreciate the world. You'll begin this course by studying some of the fundamentals of fine art. All right, and you will not be applying the knowledge. You can at home if you'd like to apply the knowledge. You're welcome to do that. But since this is a credit recovery course, you don't receive new art materials for this class, so it's not really fair of me to require you to do art. Okay, so I think that concluded the course introduction. Let me see. Excellent. So I just finished the 1.01 semester introduction, and that was the January 22nd plan. So the January 23rd plan is basically to do 1.02, the elements of art. So if we go back to the plan, I can show you that. So Tuesday, the 23rd, click on there, 1.02, elements of art. You can work through these as quickly as you want. Now this one's going to be different. The rest of them are going to have a quiz. And I always recommend that you check out, the quiz as you're doing the plan. So when it brings you back here, just come to your breadcrumb trail and then come back to your 1.02 elements of art, because then that's going to show you all of the units that are in there, and you can right click and open. Well, actually I think you can just click right here, can't you? Nope. Okay, you got to right click on it and you can open that quiz in a new window. All right, so let's see what that looks like. Now I have two monitors on my computer, so I can have my quiz open on my other monitor, and they have computer monitors very inexpensive at pawn shops. So if you can convince your learning coach to hit a pawn shop and go grab a monitor, then instead of having to try to squeeze it all on one screen, you can actually have a second monitor where you can see your quiz and you can see the content at the same time. So what I'm trying to get at here is then you want to resize this so you can see both at the same time. All right, so like the first question says, what complementary colors does Paul Gauguin use in La Orana Maria? Red and green, red and blue, green and pink, or yellow and orange. So this is where you would start reading and looking for those questions, the answers. The elements of art are the building blocks artists use to create artworks. The elements of art include line, color, shape, form, texture, value, and space. Artists use those elements to visually describe subject matter and also to communicate ideas through their work. Isn't that funny? I never read those things. I just skip right through them. Identifying the elements of art. As you read through the lesson, use the student guide to take notes. Okay, there is a nice little elements of art guide here. Let's see what it says. Okay, so it shows what they are. Line, you've got like vertical lines, straight lines, spiral lines, jagged, zigzag lines, and you have geometric shapes, you have organic shapes that are things like the leaves and the trees, things in nature are organic. And then you have color, which there isn't any on this PDF. That's just such a shame. Texture, look at these different textures. And value, the gradient between pure black and pure white and all of the different values in between. Space is the subject itself, is the positive space, and then the area around it in the background, that's your negative space. And the way that objects are arranged in space can make them look closer to you or further away. And then form is 3D. So when you take that shape, that triangle, and you make it a three-dimensional object, it's not a shape anymore. Now it's a form. So we've got pyramidal pyramids, and we have spheres and cubes are all forms. Elements of art. Artists compose artworks using basic elements or building blocks. The basic elements of art, and if you click on there, it says the basic parts of things that make up works of art, including line, shape, color, value, form, texture, and space. Include, there they all are, and I guess you can click on each of those and it will tell you, like, a line is a mark determined by 2 points and extending in both directions. A shape, a closed space such as a circle, square, rectangle, triangle, or oval. Color, a general term used for hues. Hue is synonymous for color of the spectrum produced by light reflecting off of a surface. Texture, the way a surface feels to the touch or how it looks. Textures are described by such words as rough, smooth, hard, or soft. Value, the lightness or darkness of a color or surface. Space, the area objects occupy or the area surrounding objects in an artwork. And form, an object with height, width, and depth. Examples of forms are cube, cylinder, sphere, and cone. The way in which artists use those elements helps determine the style of artworks. For example, line, a mark that's determined by 2 points. And I think that this kind of is just going to repeat what we've already done. Okay, So we can go back through that. And we still haven't gotten to the answer to our question. Do you remember what it was? What complementary colors does Paul Gauguin use in La Rana Maria? Oh, so we're still looking for complementary colors. A line is perhaps the most basic element in art. Simply put, a line is a continuous mark made on a surface. It has length and width, but no depth. Lines are commonly described as horizontal, vertical, diagonal, thin, thick, freeform, spiral, or zigzag, and there's tons of other ways to describe lines. American painter Grant Wood used horizontal and vertical lines in American Gothic to create structure and order. Look for them in the pitchfork, clothing, and buildings. Find other types of lines as well, such as curved and diagonal. Contour and implied lines. A contour line, a line that defines the edges and surfaces of a subject to suggest shape and volume, defines the edges and surfaces of a subject to suggest shape and volume. Notice how contour lines create the illusion of volume in the figure's hands and faces in Las Meninas by Spanish painter Diego Velázquez. An implied line, a line suggested by the arrangement of forms or by changes in value, is a line suggested by the arrangement of forms or changes in value. In Las Meninas, the heads of the girls form implied lines that make the top of a triangle. And I can show you that triangle right there. Do you see that? Those are implied lines from the tops of their heads. You can see the line formed by 2 points and going off forever in both directions. And their dresses form the bottom. Here we go. We have this triangle and the bottom of their dresses form the base. Nice. Another example of implied line is found on the neck or face of the female dwarf at the right. Notice how the change in value creates definition between her face and neck. Look for more examples of contour lines. Beautiful. We're still looking. Color. Here we go. We're getting closer. Hue and the color wheel. Color is perhaps the most complex element of art. It has 3 main properties: hue, saturation, and value. Well, let's go ahead and take a look. Hue, a property of color referring to the classification or name given to it according to the spectrum. Saturation, a property of color referring to the intensity or concentration of pigment used to create a particular color. And value, the lightness or darkness of a color or surface. Hue is the name given to a color. For example, red. We use a color wheel, a circular chart that organizes colors, to organize hues into color groups and schemes, which are sets of colors artists use in artworks. Color groups include primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. You cannot make these colors by mixing other colors. These are the 3 colors that we use to make all other colors. Secondary colors are orange, green, and violet. You make these colors by mixing the primary colors. What makes orange? Red and yellow. What makes green? Blue and yellow. What makes violet? Red and blue. Intermediate colors made by mixing primary and secondary colors together, like yellow, green, and blue, violet, are intermediary colors. Complementary colors are colors found opposite of each other on the color wheel. So if we look down below, red and green are complementary colors. Purple and yellow are complementary. Orange and blue. Analogous colors, a set of neighboring related colors on a color wheel, like the orange and the yellow orange and the yellow green. All of these are analogous. They're all right next to each other. They're neighbors. And we can see over here that we have purple and red purple and purple red. So anyway, those are analogous. They just are beside each other, right next to each other. Warm colors, colors that create a warm feeling in an artwork, like red, orange, and yellow are warm. Cool colors create a cool feeling, like blue, green, and violet are cool. So you can see that coolness over here and the warmth over here. Perfect. Monochromatic colors, a set of colors consisting of a single color and its tints and shades. So a tint is when you add white to a color, and a shade is when you add black to a color. Tints, the color you get when you add white. Shades, the color you get when you add black. And neutral colors, a set of colors consisting of brown, gray, white, and black. Perfect. Click color groups and schemes to learn about color in more detail. So the color wheel identifies the three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. So let's look at those. Red, yellow, and blue. And look at, they form a triad on the color wheel. They're equidistant from each other on that color wheel, and it's kind of like a triangle. You can't make the primary colors by mixing other colors together. Secondary colors, the green, orange, and violet, so green, orange, and violet, they're also a triad. Those are our secondary colors. You get green by mixing the yellow and blue. You get violet, where are we at? Violet, here we go, by mixing the red and the blue, and then you get orange by mixing the yellow and the red. Secondary colors, green, orange, and violet, are made by mixing together the two primary colors closest to them on the color wheel. Red and yellow make orange, yellow and blue make green, and blue and red make violet. Colors made by combining a primary and a secondary color are called intermediate. They're also called tertiary. So if you have like primary means first order, secondary means second order, and tertiary means third order. So they're called intermediate colors such as yellow orange and blue green. When labeling the intermediate colors, the primary hue name precedes the secondary hue name. So this one would be yellow green, because yellow is the primary color and green is the secondary color. And this would be blue green, because blue is the primary and green is the secondary. Color wheel with complementary colors. Complementary colors are opposites of the color wheel: orange and blue, red and green, violet and yellow. Putting complementary colors next to one another in an artwork makes each color stand out and be noticed. It looks like we're kind of getting to this. What complementary colors does Paul Gauguin use in La Arana Maria? So take a look at that. Let's look at the color wheel. What are you noticing? I see red. That red stands out to me more than anything else. Is red's complementary color green used in that painting? Yes, it is. Is red and green and wait a minute. Yeah, red and green is an option. Woohoo! Okay, let's look at the next question. Which is the best definition of value? Is it the intensity or concentration of a pigment? Is it the use of expensive materials to make an artwork? Is it the lightness or darkness of a color or surface, or the tactile surface quality of an object? Tactile means touch. Something that has a tactile quality means you can actually take your fingers and touch it and feel that texture. All right, and then the last one we're looking for is, what is one technique that Velázquez uses to create the illusion of depth in Las Meninas? I don't think we've gotten there yet. So let's just keep going. We have the analogous colors, they're neighbors. We have warms and cools. The monochromatic color scheme. So remember we were talking about tints is where you add white to green, for example, and then the shade would be adding black, so it's darker. So this right here would be a monochromatic scheme if you did your painting with all different tints and shades and hues of green, like that. Neutral colors are black, white, and all shades of gray. Okay, perfect. So we finished that. Let's move on. Colors in works of art. You'll see many of the color groups and schemes in La Arana Maria by French artist Paul Gauguin. Gauguin used the primary colors yellow in the bananas, red and blue in the clothing. Look for any examples of secondary, intermediate, complementary, analogous, warm, cool, monochromatic, and neutral colors. Then review that color groups and schemes to see if you made the right choice. Color, saturation, and value. Hue is one property of color. Saturation and value are the others. Saturation, or intensity, is the concentration of pigment used to create a particular color. When discussing saturation, we use terms like bright and dull. A color at full saturation has no black or white added. You can change the saturation by adding a neutral or complementary, color, whereas Gauguin used highly saturated and less saturated colors in Laurana Maria. Well, it looks like we have more saturated colors in the foreground, and in the background they're less saturated, and it makes them look like they're further off in the distance because they're kind of faded. Value refers to the lightness or darkness of a color. Look for green in Laurana Maria, then for light and dark green. Gauguin added white to green to make the light tint and black to green to make the dark shade. Use the magnifier to study the saturation and value in this painting. There we go. We see some really dark shades of green and some lighter tints. Excellent. And I think we answered the question, which is the best definition of value? The lightness or darkness of a color or surface. And then question 3, what is one technique that Velasquez uses to create the illusion of depth? Let's keep reading and see if we find out. Shape. Shapes are flat and closed spaces. A shape is created by lines or variations in color and value, which define its edges. Shapes can be referred to as geometric or organic. Geometric shapes include circles, squares, triangles, rectangles, and ovals, usually have sharp edges and represent human-made objects or structures. Organic shapes are irregular or free form and are usually used to represent the natural world. Gauguin used mostly organic shapes. Flowers on clothing, leaves, mountains, and figures. He used some geometric shapes as well, circles for melons and halos, an oval for the table. What geometric shapes did Gauguin use for the bowl on the table? Form refers to an object that is three-dimensional. It is an important element in sculpture. Forms have height, width, and depth and can be free-form or geometric cubes, spheres, pyramids, cones, and cylinders. English artist Henry Moore used mostly free-form forms in this sculpture, which I'm not seeing. Not sure, it didn't show up. Go to the next screen to see if you can find any forms loosely based on a sphere or cylinder. Ooh, there's Henry Moore's. Oh, that's Mother and Child, completed in 1983. What kind of shapes are those, or what kind of forms? Organic. Do you see any geometric forms here? Only the structure that it's sitting upon adds a nice juxtaposition, accentuates the organic form of the sculpture itself. Implied form. In a Sunday afternoon on the island of Le Grand Jatte, French artist Georges Seurat created the illusion of three-dimensional form by adding value to his colors. The darker areas emphasize the shaded rounding of the figures in this painting. This tricks the viewer's eye into seeing form or three-dimensional figures. Move the magnifier over the painting to see implied forms created by darker values on the figures. There we go. We see those darker values create the effect that she has a fold, and it also creates that rounded appearance. So you've got some highlights and some deep shadows that help to create that three-dimensional. Oh, look, we've got some nice value here, contrasted with the white on those pants. Texture. Texture is the tactile surface quality or feel of an object. Texture can be actual or implied. You feel texture on sculptures and see it in paintings and imagine what the surface of mother and child might feel like. Use the magnifier to examine the textures that Henry Moore used to change the look and feel of the bronze. Does it appear rough or smooth, hard or soft? Even though the sculpture is bronze and therefore hard, the figure's flesh appears soft and supple. Implied texture. Grant Wood added implied texture in American Gothic. Notice how texture is used to simulate the appearance of real cotton and denim fabrics and the metal of a pitchfork. Where else in the painting do you notice texture? How would you describe the implied texture of the woman's hair, the man's face, and the treetops? Space is the area taken up by or surrounding objects. It can be shallow or deep. Artists manipulate space to create an illusion of depth in a flat painting. Foreground, the parts of an object that seem to be the closest. Middle ground, the space in an artwork between the background and the foreground. And background, the parts in an artwork that seem to be the farthest away, are terms that describe the illusion of depth. Artists make the nearest foreground objects the largest and lowest in the picture. The most distant background objects are the smallest and higher in the picture. Foreground objects can also overlap to extend over or in front of objects in the middle and background for an added sense of depth. How did Grant Wood create a sense of depth in American Gothic? How did he create space between the pitchfork and the people, and between the people and the farmhouse? Which objects are in the foreground, middle ground, and background? Where does Wood use overlapping to show depth? Positive and negative space. Let's see if that answered our question over here. What is one technique that Velázquez used to create the illusion of depth in Las Meninas? Foreground figures are larger and lower than background figures. Oh, that's so true. I'm clicking it already. I like it. There's very little difference in the value. No, there is actually a lot of difference. Figures do not overlap. Yes, they do overlap. And background figures are larger and higher. No, that's not true. So this goes right along with what we just read. And look at that. We can go ahead and save all of the responses and then go and submit the quiz. Okay? All right. So that's how you do that. Then you would be finished with 1.02. Of course, you'd want to finish reading positive and negative space. Space may also be referred to as either positive, a space in an artwork that is filled with objects, lines, shapes, colors, or designs, or negative, an empty space or void in an artwork that forms part of the design. Positive space is the space created by actual objects in an artwork. Negative space is the space around and between the objects. Henry Moore put a great deal of thought into how he used positive and negative space. Where in the sculpture do you notice positive and negative space? Positive space is the material, bronze. Negative space is exemplified by the open or hollowed out areas between the bodies and also the space surrounding the sculpture. So we can go ahead and say, where do you see positive and negative space? Okay, there's the positive space, the object itself, the sculpture, and there's the negative space, the area around the sculpture. Value is the lightness or darkness of a surface. Value is a property of color, but the elements of value extend beyond that of color. Pencil drawings, bronze sculptures, and photographs have value as well. Manipulating value in a flat artwork can help artists create an illusion of form and depth. Sculptors can also manipulate value by planning recessed areas that have darker values due to shadows. How did Velázquez use value in Las Meninas? He used dark values to show recessed areas and lighter values to show closer areas. Communicating mood. We've just looked at some of the ways that artists use the elements of art to build or create artworks. The elements of art can also help artists communicate feeling or mood through their work. Look again at American Gothic. What mood do you think this painting communicates? How do the elements of art work together here to create this particular mood? Click Wrap Up Elements of Art to review what you've learned in this lesson. Read the list of terms and enter each in the box next to its definition. Line. You know, I think it's easier to do it the other way. The intensity or concentration of a color, that is saturation. The name of a color based on the color wheel is its hue. A flat enclosed space is a shape. The surface quality of an object is its texture. A mark that has length and width. That would be a shape too. A flat enclosed space. That That would be, I don't know, or there might have to take another look at this. The lightness or darkness of a color surface is the value. The area taken up by surrounding objects is space, and a three-dimensional object with height, width, and depth is a form. So one of these was supposed to be a line. I guess that would be the mark. No, that doesn't make any sense. A flat enclosed space and a mark that has length and width. I'm not buying it, but I guess a mark that has length and width could be a line. It was defined as 2 points that are connected, that go off in both directions forever and ever and ever. But hey, I guess that could work, a mark that has length and width. Sometimes things will be a little bit confusing. Read the list of color groups and schemes. All right, so primary colors, do you remember what those are? Look at the wheel, red, blue, and yellow, primary colors. Secondary colors, look at the wheel, what come in between those? Orange, green, and violet. That'd be D. Intermediate colors are going to be like the yellow, orange, the blue, violet. Complementary colors, red and green. Let's see if they have it. Orange and blue, yep, red and green. Those are complementary. Analogous colors are going to be like right next to each other. So let's see what we have. Light blue, blue, and dark blue. Oh, that's going to be monochromatic colors, the light blue, dark blue. Let's look at red, red, violet, and blue, violet. Red, red, violet, and blue, violet. So those probably are going to be our analogous colors because they're right next to each other in the color wheel. The white, gray, brown, and black, those are your neutral colors. Green, blue, and violet. I think, let's see, green, blue, and violet. Huh, those are analogous colors too. But they're also cool colors, so those would be the cool colors. All right. Anyway, read the list. The three properties of color are hue, saturation, and value. Blank is the name of a color based on the color wheel. That's hue. Blank is the intensity. That's saturation. And value is the lightness or darkness. One more. Which of the following best describes how George Girot used the elements of art in the painting? Let's see. He used colors with low saturation. No. His shapes are mostly geometric. No, they're very organic. He implied form through shading. We know that. He made space look shallow. Nope, he used overlapping, so that's got to be it. Yay, good job. Okay, so I think that is the end. Putting it all together. Click, think about elements of art and answer the questions. Boy, they don't want you to not get it. You know why? It's because the unit test is going to be really hard and they want to make sure that you get it. Describe the 2 examples of color and 2 examples of shape in Paul Gauguin's La Rana Marina. So he had those complementary colors, right? And he uses a lot of primary colors. And shape was organic. What mood do these elements work together to create? A very natural, primitive mood. Why do you think they suggest the mood? Describe how Gauguin could use one of these elements of art differently and how the mood of the painting would change. Oh yeah, if he used any geometric forms, it would totally take the feeling away that we were in this tropical, primitive environment. All right, so that's pretty much how this works. And I know that I went through a lot of that with you, but I just wanted to show you that it has literally been 30 minutes and I finished all of my work for 1.02 and the 1.01. So remember that in any class, you are expected to work for an hour a day on it. So if you put in 30 minutes a day to an hour and do each of the units that are in the plan, you will come out of this with an A, okay? And if you do that A, when you get down to the very end of the class, when it's time for that final exam, remember, if you have an A, you don't have to take the final. The final's hard. You can go in there and take a look at it if you want to. Alrighty. Thanks so much, you guys. I know that you are going to love art history. I do. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or you can text me 801-637-9682. And of course, my contact information is right here. Ciao.